Ironically, and in a really weird way, Toledo, a 9-5 football team, was way closer to a national championship than Colgate was. Here's what I mean. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master of Football, back at it again. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit the red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too, and follow on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, here we are. We are just before 0 week. We are, again, it's Thursday right now. We are 2 days away from college football games that are consequential occurring. Now, again, do we think that these games are going to be national championship implication games? Maybe not. San Jose State, we'll see what they can do against USC. More than likely, USC is going to win that one. Navy, who had a really tough season last year, lost Kenny Niumatalolo at coach. They play Notre Dame in Dublin, Ireland, so we'll see what happens with Sam Hartman, new transfer from Wake Forest. We're going to see what happens there. But I want to start with a story really quickly because there's two teams that I want to highlight. One of them comes from the college basketball world, and the other one comes from the college football world. Let's get into those teams right now. The first one here was last season's 2022-2023 Colgate team. And again, we come out here and check what they did. So Colgate this last season, so they started the season 0-1. They lost to Buffalo. Then they beat Brown. They beat Wells College. They beat Syracuse at Syracuse. Big win there. And they lost to Duquesne. Eventually get all the way down here to the point to where they go 26-8, win their tournament. They only lost one conference game. They lost to American University on the road. But then beyond that, they absolutely rolled to their championship there. Had a tough game at Navy there, a 4-point win on the road. But for the most part, you see the fact 26-8, 17-1 in conference. And what did they do? They go into the tournament. They play against they were 15 seed. They play 2 seed Texas, and they lose by 20. Then we have the 2022 Toledo Rockets football team. Toledo Rockets come out here and they beat LIU. They beat UMass. They get destroyed by Ohio State. They lose to a really, really tough defensive game at San Diego State. They go ahead and win a bunch of games here. They lose to Bowling Green, Western Michigan, and Buffalo. They eventually get it to the MAC championship game, and they beat Ohio 17-7. And then they win the Boca Raton Bowl over Liberty 21-19. They end the regular season 7-5. Then they go 8-5, and then 9-5. Lost 5 games. But they're MAC champions there. So I know what you must be thinking. You're like, okay, Jake, why the hell are you talking about Colgate and Toledo, two teams that really don't have any consequential impact to the college football world? Why are we talking about them? I'm talking about them because, ironically, and in a really weird way, Toledo, a 9-5 football team, was way closer to a national championship than Colgate was. Here's what I mean. Now, I know you might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about here? Here's what I want to do. This video is about the connection and the importance of the G5/6. We don't know what the situation is there to the rest of college football there. There's a lot of conversations about a Power 2 breakaway, things like that. What I'm going to do with this conversation, talk about the Power 2 breakaway, what that is, talk about what it's forcing teams to do, and why I think it would be a stupid idea for multiple reasons, including money reasons. Let's get into that right now. So here we are at sportingnews.com from Bill Bender. From Power 5 to Power 2, the Big Ten and the SEC will dominate post-realignment FBS at a heavy cost. It goes through a couple things here, talking about how the fact that just the sheer number of these teams, the sheer number of markets, the sheer number of dollars in terms of athletic departments, it's just absolutely dwarfs each other. Talks about some of the issues here. Again, the ACC grant of rights. He mentioned here the fact that the ACC grant of rights is slowing this down because Florida State wants out and the Big Ten wants Florida State. SEC, we'll kind of see what happens there. But then we also see the fact that there's the consequences of the Big Two. He mentions that one, it would be NFL light. They'd be canceling out the other 70% of the teams would be a bad thing. You'd have better weight classes. You'd have more fractured fan bases. You'd have better college football Super Bowl. You'd have a 12-team playoff that won't last. It's a more lucrative game, but then also costs the soul of sport. He basically goes through ups and downs of that thing. I actually want to stick to my talking points here because you can see the fact that everybody notices this Power 2 situation coming up, and everybody is trying their best to combat it, address it or whatever, to the point to where we're seeing some insane things out there in the college football world. Now, I know that unfortunately the whole Stanford and Cal situation is more than likely caused by Stanford and Cal. That's on them. But again, we're seeing the fact that ACC ramp-ups talk up for adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU to the ACC. Think about that. Farthest westward team is the Louisville Cardinals, and then they would be adding in Cal and Stanford in the Bay Area, and then SMU. Now, Cal and Stanford are as much as people try to talk trash on their football teams, they are very, very unique brands in terms of college universities. The presidents love them. The ADs don't necessarily like them that much. But you see the fact that SMU's gotten to the point where SMU says SMU's concessions are expected to be different from those of Stanford and Cal, including a willingness to play or willingness for the school to take no broadcast media revenue for the first 7 years it is in the league. Sources told ESPN the concessions for Cal and Stanford will include taking a reduced share of the ACC payout. Sources said both schools are expected to receive the same reduced share. So think about that. SMU wants a seat at the table. They see the situation with, unfortunately, the Big 12 is never going to add them because they already have enough Texas products, so to say. SMU wants in. They literally got a bunch of donors and like, listen, we will pay for 7 years. Put us in the league. We'll do it for free. We will play in your conference for free just because we want to see at the table when whatever happens with college football happens with college football. We're seeing those crazy decisions out there. And again, they're actually really not that crazy when you think about that. They're just doing their best to be included there. Now, a couple things I want to address here because there's a lot of conversations about the G5 and the G6. Oh, it's not relevant, this and that, whatever the situation is. I'm going to address a couple of those right now. What we know, kind of some dumb things that people are saying out there that they need to address, and then some solutions out there in the future for a G5, P5 inclusion in the future. Again, with more money, the most important thing. Let's go. So right here, what we know right now is the fact that less FBS teams versus D1 basketball teams equals a higher chance of winning the championship. It's still extremely low. Again, I show that here to show this because I would put this together, and it's absolutely shocking when you see this number. So right now in college football, there's 133 FBS teams in 2023, and then in their college basketball, there's 354 D1 teams in 2023, 2024. In the last 20 champions for college basketball, we see 11 different teams. Syracuse, UConn 4 times, North Carolina 3 times, Florida twice, Kansas twice, Duke twice, Villanova twice, and then Kentucky, Louisville, Virginia, and Baylor. So we see 11 different teams. No, we're going to see, way fewer teams in terms of college football, right? No. FBS football teams, the last 20 champions, 10 different teams. USC had a shared one in 2003 with LSU. Again, they don't do that anymore. It's kind of stupid. And then 2004, LSU has 3, including one shared with USC in 2003. Texas has 1. Florida has 2. Alabama has 6. Auburn 1. Florida State 1. Ohio State 1. Clemson 2. And Georgia 2. So you think about that. We think about basketball. Oh, there's way more parity in basketball. There's way more parity in basketball. No, there's not. In the last 20 champions for college basketball, there's 11 teams. The last 20 for football, there's 10. It is what it is. I even checked previously before that. So basketball, the previous 20 champions, even before that, we see the fact that NC State has 1, Georgetown has 1, Villanova 1, Louisville 1, Indiana 1, Kansas 1, Michigan 1, UNLV 1, Duke 3, North Carolina 1, Arkansas 1, UCLA 1, Kentucky 2, Arizona 1, UConn 1, and Michigan State 1. And then football, the past 20 champions, even before that, there was 15 teams. So Miami had 5, including one that was shared with Miami, or it was shared with Washington. BYU 1, Oklahoma 2, Penn State 1, Notre Dame 1, Colorado 1 shared with Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech 1 shared with Colorado, Washington 1 shared with Miami, Alabama 1, Florida State 2, Nebraska 3, 1 shared with Michigan, Florida 1, Michigan 1 shared with Nebraska, Tennessee 1, and then Ohio State 1. So you see the fact that, again, it's roughly about this similar. You see the fact there is a reduction in the previous 20 years. The previous 20 years, so 40 years ago to 20 years ago in college basketball, there was 16 teams that won the championship, then there was only 11 the next 20 years, and then the same thing with college football, there was 15, and then there was only 10 in the future. But you see the fact, based on the number of teams there are, like I said before, Toledo, completely irrelevant to the national championship picture, Toledo technically has a higher possibility of winning the FBS championship than Colgate does. And then you see what that feeds into right here. D1 basketball teams from non-threatening conferences, the MEAC, we're talking about this Patriot League and so on, win their version of the championship by going to the playoff. Colgate knows. Colgate right now plays for just going to the tournament. They go to the tournament as a 1 seed or a 16 seed or a 15 seed, and they get the crap kicked out of them. That's what they do. But that's their championship. That's what they're trying to do. They don't care if they're not going to win the national championship. All they're trying to do is get to the tournament, get everybody out there and have fun. That's what they're trying to do out there. That's what they want. They want a glimpse of hope. They don't want their own, super FCS championship or something like that. They want that glimpse of hope. And then also down here at the bottom, including the G5/G6, can expand the playoff, which equals more money, which is the main deciding factor in all of these scenarios. Now, I want to make sure I address some of the dumb opinions out there. So if you want to say something stupid, say something along the lines of this, and I'll go ahead and make sure that you understand how stupid you are. So G5, G6 should play their own playoff, and the league should separate. No G5, G6 wants this at all. They would rather have a slim opportunity of hope at a championship as opposed to a super FCS championship. That is, you know nothing about the G5, G6 if you think that. Another stupid opinion I hear that people might say is, oh, no G5, G6 team has a shot at winning the national championship of football. And neither does half the SEC, 3/4 of the Big Ten, 80% of the 2024 Big 12 and ACC, and even Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not a national championship contender. The last time they were there, they lost something like 56 to something. They're not there. So if you think about that, there's realistically like maybe 15 programs that can claim they have an opportunity to win a national championship. Maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe. But realistically out there, if you look at that, there's a lot of teams out there that have no shot that are in the dance. So talking about a team in a different conference not being in the dance is kind of hypocritical there. And also you see the fact 90% of college basketball teams have no shot at the championship too, and they still want to be included as well. And then another dumb opinion out here. The money the SEC and Big Ten will make will prevent anyone from ever beating them on the field. Conference realignment is about school revenue and has almost no correlation with more wins. Remember the fact that Appalachian State, little in the backwoods of North Carolina, went out to the highest recruiting class of all time, Texas A&M, and won on the road at Kyle Field. That is just a sliver of an example. Marshall goes to Notre Dame, they win. I can keep on going here continuously. Yeah, for the most part, P5 teams beat G5 teams. But if you're pretending here like money is going to make you win more games, you don't know anything about coaching, you don't know anything about the transfer portal, you literally don't know anything about sports. And then the last stupid opinion I hear is NIL from the SEC and Big Ten schools will have them hoard players. Unfortunately, from what we've seen so far, the NIL is only a deciding factor if a player is playing. If he isn't, NIL has not shown the ability to allow teams to stash 4- and 5-star players on their benches for multiple years. What I mean by that is you see the fact that Texas A&M brought in that amazing class, everybody got big paydays, and then they all left because one, they weren't playing or they got suspended. Again, there was a lot of things with the whole Texas A&M situation there. But you see the fact that, unfortunately, up until the point that somebody would go and sit on the bench at Northwestern, as opposed to playing at Northern Illinois, up until that moment happens, a 5-star sits on the bench at Northwestern, as opposed to playing right away at Northern Illinois, up until that moment, NIL is not as deciding factor as you think it is. Last but not least, the most important thing here is ways to make more money with the G5, G6. Remember here, there's a zillion seeds in the NCAA tournament that have absolutely no shot at winning the tournament. All they want to do is just be able to go. Even if they lose, they just want to be able to be there. 16-team playoff, which is what we're going to get to, and 5 automatic qualifiers. You would give a small kernel of hope to the G5/G6 teams, which is literally all that they want. Again, you think about that. That's one game. That's one seed in a 16-team tournament. The number one seed would get to play a team probably ranked in the 20s. They would look forward to that heavily. Also, a new opportunity here, again, bringing over from college basketball, the same similarities we're talking about here, play-in games to a 16-team playoff. The 4 highest-rated G5, G6 teams would play one additional game, with the seeding determining who and where they play. The highest-rated team would be the home team, and they would play the lowest-rated team out of those 4 teams. And then the second highest-rated team would be a home team. They would play the second lowest-rated home team. So with this situation, you would have your 4 big conference champions, ACC for now. I know we're talking about for now. Big 12, Big 10, and SEC. And then you'd have 2 seeds that would be added in there, and then you'd have 10 at-large bids. That'd be more than enough bids for the SEC and Big 10 to go around. And you'd give kernels, again, a little bit of kernel there to the MAC, to the American, to the Mountain West, to the Sun Belt, Conference USA, and even whatever happens to the Pac-12. You give a little kernel, a little tiny kernel there. Also, another option down here would be the 5 automatic qualifiers, including so it would be those 4 big conferences and then the best of the G5s, with the highest and second highest rated conference champion outside of those top 5 automatic qualifiers have to play in game for the spot. So you'd have 5 automatic qualifiers. You'd probably have SEC, Big 10, Pac-12, or not Pac-12, Big 12, and then ACC. And then what you would have is you would have whoever was the best of the American or the Mountain West, whatever that is. And then let's just say the next 2 would be the best of the Sun Belt and the best of the MAC. They would have a play-in game to be with a 6th team. And then you'd have 10 additional at-large bids there. Again, more money, more opportunity here. You include the G5, G6 teams. They get more happy because trust me, they do not want a super FCS championship. Now, one thing that could speed up that process of the separation of the power two is the fact that even this whole Michigan suspension of Jim Harbaugh, the selective enforcement, the inconsistency of the rules. Joel Klatt said it perfectly out there. The NCAA is digging their own grave. The more they piss off the Big Ten, the more they piss off the SEC with these inconsistencies, the lack of accountability, the sheer randomness of enforcement of laws out here. He's basically saying they could just get to the point where they're like, we're going to break away, and the NCAA has no real power to stop them. So what they should do is find a way to make this work. The CFP literally governs college football at this point. So find a way to make that work. Otherwise, the NCAA will be pushed on its way out. I'm telling you, the Power 2 has a chance of breaking away, but based on what I've shown you so far, it would make no sense based on money, and it would make no sense based on just pride of the event. It also would completely alienate a ton of football fans from the sport, so I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I said a Power 2 breakaway is probably not going to happen, but again, if it does, there's a lot. Do you risk alienating a ton of college football fans out? Do you risk alienating West Virginia fans? Do you risk alienating Washington State, Oregon State fans? I know you might say, who cares about those fans? Well, they care about those fans. And unfortunately, I think what right now is going on with college football is a lot of the networks are like, how can we get people in the Northeast, where there's a bulk of the country in terms of populations in the Northeast, how can we get them interested? USC plays Ohio State, Michigan plays Alabama, whatever. Those are the games that they want to see out there. Now, with that, all they got to do to include the G5 is give them a little bit of kernels. Give them a play-in game to the playoff. Even if they play the 16 seed plays the 1 seed, whatever the situation is, let the G5 in, because your product will be better and you'll be able to make more money. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Get in the comments right now. Do you think the G5 just has there's no point of it? So if you say that to, I would basically say, okay, you want college basketball to do the same thing. Because realistically right now, there's only like 30 or 40 teams that have a shot at the championship every year in college basketball. And we're complaining about the fact that, we don't want to change the NCAA tournament there, but we want to change the G5 and the P5. That's what we want to do here. Anyways, you guys get in the comments right now. Let me know if you have any pushback there. But again, that's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.